a lot of people got tired because the Bloods became so big, it was like unstoppable. So they started, of course, targeting their own people.
So you were locked up on Rikers from 88 to 91 and then
Mm,
92 to 95,
No, I got locked
right?
up in 88, short stint. I was going back and forth with bullshit charges. Like I'll stay a week, my mother leave me punished,
Oh, got you.
shit like that. I ain't catch the big bid till 92.
To 92.
92 is when I caught the big bid, which I didn't come home from that. That's the one I was fighting the homicide for.
Right. So when you finally come home like at the end of 96, right? Like that's when you're like out of prison. You haven't gone back really.
Completely, yeah, that was the last
Yeah.
time. Yeah, that was the last time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Bloods start on Rikers in 93 with OG Mac, right?
Right.
What was it like for you seeing the growth of the Bloods and the Crips in the streets of New York throughout the years?
Well, to be honest with you, the Crips wasn't that big at the time. The Crips, you
Yeah,
would
they say that they were outnumbered, right? Like,
yeah, you would only see there was only a couple of Crips that you knew about in there, like Psych Bike and Gutter and couple of them. There wasn't really that many of them, but the ones that were turned up. You know what I mean? They was about theirs. You know what I mean? But they were very limited. They really started taking like when I started like noticing the growth, like the heavy growth was after like 2010. Um 2010, 2012 is when you started seeing them like more and more and more, like getting out there more. But I didn't really see them like that, like as big as they started getting to like 2010.
what was the perception of Crips and Bloods in New York, like through the early years in the streets and stuff like that? Was it like viewed like, oh, that's that LA shit? Like, why is it in New York?
Nah, they was actually banging because because I looked at it like a lot of the stuff that happened was like built on an opposition, like the oppression. Like they talk about oppression. All right, let's talk about oppression. A lot of people got tired because the Bloods became so big, it was like unstoppable. So they started, of course, targeting their own people. So when you target a demographic, what happens? A lot of them don't want to become kings because they didn't like the kings or the kings had a stigma. So what did they do? They jumped into that what was the Crips at the time. So the Crips at the time, they was already starting, like I said, there was already Crips out. Some were from LA that they have family out there and they were Crips, but then when it started blowing up, I think a lot of it formed because of what was going on with the Bloods because they were coming into areas and just taking over, bro. They was taking over, bro. Like they really exploded. Like they talk about the Kings. Yeah, the Kings had their explosion was 93, 94, 95 was when we had our boom. But the Bloods was a little bit different because they had so many different sets. We were all under one set at the time, under one the name, under one banner. They were just so many different because he was just giving certain dudes from certain hoods. Like he'd take crews and be like, "Oh, you from that crew? You are OG Bang," and he would give different people their own hoods. So when they started getting their hoods, bro, they just was like they go back to their neighborhood. Their whole neighborhood turned. They go back to this. So it was a different demographic from the way we did things. So they had a super head start, you know what I'm saying, from what it was with us, you know what I'm saying? So obviously when you're growing, you step on certain people to get where you gotta go. And that's basically the Crips, how the Crips started up. I don't really know too much about the Crip um stuff because remember, I haven't been in prison from 96. So on the street, especially out here in Long Island, I didn't really see them. And in the area where I was at in Brooklyn at the time, when I was living in East New York, and when I lived in in the South Bronx at the time too, I used to be up there heavy. There wasn't really too many Crips up there. They were more like Canarsie, Flatbush, down those areas in Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? And in the Bronx at the time, they were the only place that use that they had a foothold that they were coming up in was like over there by like St. Mary's projects that was coming up over there by St. Mary's over there. What is that over there? It's like by 156, that area over there. They was coming up in the South Bronx, and that little those little projects over there. That's where they were coming up. But you didn't. Other than that, you didn't really see them. And the funny thing is, a lot of those dudes are from Honduras.
Wow.
Yeah, but they look like they're black because Hondureños are dark. So that's another thing that people look at them and they'll start talking shit about them in Spanish, and then they'll turn around and start speaking Spanish to puta que, and they're Spanish. They're from Honduras. They're Honduran, and but they're dark. They're very dark. So yeah.
Right. So, I mean, like, was that a trip for you to start to see the rise of Crips in New York, though?
Not really, bro, because like I said, I started seeing so many different organizations and so many different things forming that it was just getting so out of hand. Like every day something new was coming out. So, my mind frame wasn't even on that anymore, bro. I see so many different beads and so many different flags that I stopped paying attention, to be honest with you. Because it just New York is so crazy. Every block, is just,
What is your take on the whole Wu versus Chu thing?
I didn't really pay too much attention to that, bro, to be honest with you. That you're talking about a subject I'm really not familiar with, to be honest with you, at all.
Got you.
I'll be real, bro. Like, I know they had certain people once. They had folks and Crips over here, and then they had Bloods and mixed in, and they were doing music. And next thing you know, they was all beefing. But I don't really know the whole history. I can't even tell you nothing about that whole thing. I'm like 2 generations past them. Just being honest with you.
All right.